Hey everybody, it is TorontoUnicorn here, and I'm already giggling, and it's not gonna stop because I have a story time for you that is fresh off the presses, fresh off the experience, and it's a big one. So I wanted to share in an intimate setting. So this is my pillow talk. I'm not under the covers. We're just laying in bed together, but it's just as if you're here beside me, hearing my story. And I hope that you enjoy. I'm an experienced swinger. I have had a lot of experiences with other women and threesomes and things like that. But one thing I have never done, and truthfully wasn't even on my to-do list, was solo girl on girl play with no other guy involved. It's the thing I never had on my bucket list, and now it's something I've crossed off. So that's a big deal. I literally fooled around with a female friend for the sake of fooling around with my female friend. Normally I did that when I was gonna be, also sharing the guy. So this was different for me, and you wouldn't know I'm the same person in this experience in real life, as you would expect on my channel, where I'm very confident and I'm very sure of myself most of the time. I turned into this awkward, shy, don't know how to fucking move from one step to the next girl like anybody else would. And I have to convey this through this story, was just how fucking nervous and unsure I was the whole time. Not about her. She was a perfect choice, a great friend. About my ability to flirt with women, my ability to know how to turn a moment with a woman into a sexual energy instead of just a giggly, your boob, that boob's bigger than that boob energy, right? Like, it's just, okay, let me just get started. And I should mention, this is for YouTube. I always have to keep myself a little bit buttoned up, and by buttoned up I mean in my mouth, because I can actually get in trouble, right? And so I have to respect their rules, but don't you fret, because I'm a very big oversharer and I love to overshare on my fan page, and I'll be doing an After Dark pillow talk as well at the end of this, and you can go there right after and get the full details with no censorship. So I highly recommend. I've got a few other After Dark pillow talks there you're going to want to watch as well. All the links are on my website on TorontoUnicorn.com. But for now, this is the story of me and Mrs. A and my first ever girl on girl hookup, one on one. Okay, where do I even start? So I knew she was coming into town. So this girl does not live in the same country as me, but I've known her for years virtually. So we would log into the same virtual events on Oasis, and her and her husband would always be there. She'd always be in something really sexy, and they would always they're always fun to hang out with virtually, but then they would sometimes have sex on camera and stuff, so it would be like really hot to watch. So we've just built this friendship over the years virtually. And so I did meet them one time back in October of 2023, and man, did I ever get, my hopes dashed when I thought, oh my God, here comes my first girl on girl experience. And then she actually had already had a date for that visit with a different unicorn. And so I was out unicorned, man. And I remember being like, like, respect, like they had the situation all planned out. But I also went home thinking, oh, did I lose my opportunity, right? So this had been building in me and in her, for many, maybe months now, that we wanted to play in a way. So anyways, she comes down, they have this long drive, we make plans. I know I'm going to meet them at the club. So it took me multiple attempts to get to the point where I could kiss her, and even more attempts to get to the part where I could go down on her. So I am a confident girl in the boardroom, in a YouTube video, but in a room with a girl, not I'm as shy and unsure of myself as anyone else could be. So basically, I went to the club, Oasis Sock Lounge, on Friday night. I even did the little camera vlog thing. I held out the camera and was like, oh, I'm nervous. Da, 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 da. You won't see it on YouTube because I never hooked up that night. And so I just scrapped it as a vlog that never was, right? So I actually like went and tried to mentally like fool around with my friend on Friday. But even me and her in the pool, acknowledge that we didn't know how to get out of the friend zone. It was hard to know how to transition. And because we're friends, we were able to talk to each other about the weirdness, about how we want to kind of go down on each other, but like it's kind of a big jump from where we are. In my head, so I would be, having this casual conversation with my friend, and in my head, I'm like, how do I kiss her? How do you know the moment? Do I just wait until she stops talking for a moment and then just ask to kiss her? What if she says no? What if she says yes and then we kiss and then what? Like, am I ready to just like diddle diddle like really quickly, or are we just kissing? Like, and so I'm like nodding along as she's telling me a story, but in my head, I'm like, what do I do? Is this, and I really just couldn't. Again, R gave me this really great analogy, and when I talked to her about my night, she's like, it's almost like you're just jumping off the end of a diving board. And she's like, once you get to that point where you jump, you're going to be fine. You're good, right? But you need to be able to jump off and let go. And that's what I had trouble doing. And I guess so did Mrs. A, because otherwise she could have pursued me as well. And it was not, it was just friendly. It was giggly. Like, look at my face now. Like, it was just, how do you go from this to something different? Anyways, I get giggly around girl crushes, I guess. So anyways, we finally agreed that, well, you know what, we're hanging out tomorrow anyways, and I said I was going to interview them for my podcast, which I did, and you can get the full interview. It's over an hour with Mr. and Mrs. A about their whole entrance into the lifestyle and everything, episode 61 of Sex and Swinging with TorontoUnicorn podcast. But I had them over my house. I interviewed them for the podcast, and I even said to them in advance, how about we do we try on some lingerie, and maybe your husband could take some photos of us or something. Like, this is like my MO, my like, hey, I've done this unicorn thing before. Like, I think I know how to turn it into sexy time. Like, let's try on lingerie and get naked together. You'd think that would be like hole in one, right? No, it didn't happen, because once again, got too fucking nervous, got too fucking shy. So, believe it or not, after the interview, her husband, who we actually did discuss in the pool what our fantasies were, and so he was well aware, even though in the future he might be involved in a scene with us, that this time my fantasy was girl on girl. And so he was very happy and supportive of his wife to have the girl on girl as well. So he was happy as a clam to let her have that time. So I should put that in there. So he was in the other room while she was actually on my bed. This bed, like, she was right here, I was right here. And we had been trying on lingerie. We even got to the point where she told me that one of her boobs is bigger than the other. And so I was like, oh, well, obviously, can I touch it? Like, can I see? You'd think this is also the on-ramp to something sexual. No, it was just like, oh, well, mine's not like that. And then, like, crickets. Like, sound of crickets. Like, what do you do now? You don't go from that to diddle diddle. So, like, what do you do? So we even kissed. I even said to her, I feel like I want to kiss you. Like, can I kiss you? And she's like, yeah. And so we kissed. And here's where I'm embarrassed to admit that I am so fucking awkward that within a couple seconds of kissing, I had to pull away to tell a joke. Okay. That seems to be my awkward, nervous behavior, is to tell jokes. And I had to just get it out. So here's the funny thing. Even later on, when we finally did hook up, I had to have this funny giggle moment with them, because I said, I'm going to think of the joke, but I'm not going to tell the joke. Because it doesn't mean I don't think about them still. Anyways, so I don't even remember what the joke was, but it was just so unnecessary. It made me feel so embarrassed that I was that awkward that I had to pull away from my first like real kiss with her to tell a joke, and then we lost that kissing moment, right? And I'm like, fuck. So anyways, we did end up kissing again. So she was basically naked on my bed, sitting cross-legged. I was naked. No, I wasn't naked. I was in teal lingerie. And yeah, I have some pictures on my fan page if you want to check them out. of what I was wearing. And we were sitting cross-legged. I literally had her boob in my hand. We had kissed, and we still couldn't get it off the ground, guys. Like, we could not get it further than that. I I feel good about the fact that I didn't push it because I was that nervous, and yeah, it might have went okay, but I'm glad I waited until I was more ready, even though I thought, why am I not ready now? Right? But the funny thing is, we were sitting talking to one another as friends. And I said, there's a lot of pressure. I'm like, do you want to fool around? I'm like, or do you want to meet at the club later and fool around there? I'm like, because I even said, I'm like, look, I plan to go down on you. I don't know why I'm so shy. I think I just need some time to get there. And she's like, sure, like that sounds good. So I felt better about that. So they got their clothes on, they went and they did their thing, and I met up with them at the club later on in the night. So this is when I walked into the club, and I had some time, wait at the door, like 20 minutes to get in and process. And then by the time I got in, my couple, Mr. and Mrs. A, was already in the workshop that was being run in the Oasis Ballroom. And so it was full. I couldn't get in. So I had to basically socialize alone as a single woman on couples night for about an hour. And I kid you not, I did an experiment. I did an experiment, that's the word. And I went outside, and I didn't sit in the pool. I sat outside of the pool because the pool is a little cold. And I smiled. I looked around, and literally no one fucking talked to me. Like, for like almost the whole time. And I'm telling you, this is what it's like as single women at sex clubs. Like, if there's no single men, we are literally just observed. Maybe they think about talking to us. But truthfully, the only people that actually came up and talked to me that night were fans of my content. And one of them I loved meeting, that she was a female who said she's been watching me for 2 years. I just love it. I love when those people come up and engage. But other than that, no other couple talked to me. I certainly wasn't feeling like some prime rib on some buffet. Like, I was just a girl in the background on everyone else's date. So by the time my couple was, I found them, I was really happy. We had a drink, we sat, I even brought some snacks. I had some things that had like little green grapes, some cheese squares, some pepperoni sticks that none of us ate because we didn't want meat breath, which was hilarious because we ate all around the meat. And then, yeah, so we basically sat outside of the pool at Oasis Aqua Lounge. Beautiful weather. And we had this little bed, this little piece of furniture, flat. It had a soft top. And so we had a little picnic, right? We had our little grapes and cheese. Talk, 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 talk. And the whole time in my head, I'm like, so how do I make this happen? Like, it's time. Like, the bell's gonna ring, like, it's time. It's now or never. And even then, I just didn't know. I didn't know how to transition the friend zone into sexy time energy. And mind you, she wasn't doing it either. So it was both of us that were like, what do we do next? So I remember, like, her husband was so great. He was so supportive. He just let us have our little girl giggles and whatever. Um, I still, like, so we were sitting outside, we finished the snacks, basically started to sprinkle rain a little bit, and so we pulled over this big umbrella that kept basically just our bed a little dry, and then everyone else was kind of stuck in a little bit of rain. And so they all kind of like dispersed back inside the club. And so I'm with this couple. We're on this little bed. We have some shelter from this mild misting, and all of a sudden the whole crowd disappears. And I'm like, I don't know. Is that like the parting of the waters? And anyways, it's like, it's my time. I don't even want a crowd. There's no crowd. It's the 11th hour. Like, come on. So I think at that point, I asked if I could kiss her. She said yes. Her husband was sitting beside us. She leans in. We kiss a couple times, and then this is the confusing part for me. Then she would lean back, and I'm like, okay, is that it? So now what? In my head. And then, like, we would just talk again like normal. And then I'm like, okay, like, can I kiss you again? And then she'd say yes, and I'd kiss. Eventually she said to me, oh, you don't have to ask anymore. But in my head, I didn't know how else to kiss her. Like, I was like, what else? What are you supposed to say? Come to mama? Like, I don't know what to say. It's awkward, as I mentioned. So anyways, but for me, like, I like getting permission, so I'm not making anyone uncomfortable. The last thing I want to do is like lean in and be like to someone who doesn't want it. So anyway, I kept trying to like get the kissing started. She asked if I liked tongue sometimes. Sometimes I'm like, yeah. So then we started to like French kiss a little bit, but it wasn't as synchronistic because we didn't know who was leading. It's like dancing with someone and neither of you lead. It's funny. So anyways, it was really fun. It was like fun, soft, sensual energy. So anyways, I then said, because we were outside, it was the time, right? And I was like, well, I'm like, can I go down on you? And she's like, sure. So then she lays down and I get like my first ever kind of real close up view of this beautiful, again, on YouTube. You're going to want to come to my fan page where I start talking about what we actually did in words that don't, no one's getting me in trouble for. So this is the vanilla-ish version. Come to my fan page for the after dark. I promised you it's worth your time. Basically, let me tell you that at first I was all confident and then I couldn't get my alignment. So I was like too high, or her body was too high, and I'm like, "Can you move up a bit?" And then I would get there, but my elbows would be in the way, and I was like, "Okay, how do I get in here?" um it was humbling in a way, because we all expect like when guys go down on us to like, basically give us like a certain really sophisticated experience, and down there I could barely just get alignment. Like, it was just, I can see how there's some practice that's needed. So anyways, she actually has the same looking, as me. What's the word I can use for YouTube? Her flower. I'm gonna call it her flower. She has the same flower as I do, not as many leaves as some other flowers. Like meat curtains. Anyways, so it was familiar. And so both her and I started, when we started like experimenting on each other's bodies, we're like, oh my God, you have the exact same flower as me. And we're like, that's so cool. It's like, I feel like I know what to do. So I did my best. I used my tongue. Like, again, on YouTube, I gotta be a bit careful here, but I definitely did my best to keep in mind not to go so fast that I flick too fast, because I know as a girl, sometimes that is too much sensitivity right at the beginning. And I remember in the moment thinking, this isn't that straightforward. You do need a lot of bodily feedback from someone to be able to know if you're doing a good job. And so I did my best. I was like licking and everything, and then I tried putting a finger in. Again, I expect a lot from the people who go down on me, and yet when I was trying to use a finger and my tongue at the same time, I felt like it was a hard thing to do. And so I think that takes some practice as well. Anyway, so then I said, like, do you want a 69? And then she's like, sure. So I climb on top of her, and it's her, going down on me. It was a lot of like, is my leg in the right place? Like, moving around. Her husband just laying beside us, giving us all the time in the world, and he's not even saying anything. He's just letting us have our night, which is really cool of him. But this was happening right beside him. I think at one point he had to like help position us or something. So anyway, so we're doing that. Now, when you 69 with anybody, you're not giving your best, you're probably not getting your best, because it's more about the eroticness of like the positioning and like the dual like sensitive, or whatever it's called, sensation. But then after we did that for a little bit, then she went down on me on her own. And let me tell you, I was mesmerized by her abilities. So here's a funny side story. Someone I know, someone I'm seeing, who was giving me some advice about my big night, was actually like going down on me and then like telling me, he'd take a breath and he'd be like, okay, don't forget that here's, they like lick this part or whatever. And then the funniest part that still makes me laugh is when he said, because something about looking for the clit, and he's like, all right, he's like, but if you've gone to the hole, you've gone too far. And I still think about that, because when you're looking for it, if you've gone to the hole, you've gone too far. It's so true. So it was funny. So anyways, throughout my night with Mr. and Mrs. A, I was telling them about how the guy was giving me a tutorial on how to go down. Anyways, so then she's going down on me, and I said to her, well, I'm getting my tutorial lessons from you next time. This girl knew what she was doing. She has an ability to just get your, flour comfortable. She does this swirly thingy, and like it's a certain it felt well oiled, machiney. Does that make sense? It wasn't clunky. There was no adjustment needed. She just seemed to be able to carry this beautiful almost melody of her tongue. Now, I didn't come because I am a very hard comer, but I felt as though she could make me come with just her mouth, and that's surprising, because that's not that common for me. So I remember when I was going down, it tasted like delicious. It tasted like absolutely nothing. She smelled like nothing, which was a good thing. Like I like the natural, like, no overly scented or overly bodily scented things. So yeah, so I thought it was a great experience. Like absolutely no downsides whatsoever. After we started, like I started moaning and things, that's when the sexual energy took over and me and her were less awkward. Obviously, I mean, at that point, it's hard to get much more intimate. So after she kind of came up for air, we sat around, talked a little bit. We were kind of like, happy about the experience. And yeah, she was one of the best I've had, especially for women. Most women are just like me and just they're bumping around trying to make something happen. But this girl knew what she was doing and very good at it. So I think the thing I want to leave off with before I go to my fan page and talk about the actual like dirty details is it took a lot. It took a lot for me to get out of my own way. It took a lot for me to push myself outside of my own comfort zone, outside of my own friend zone. And it's not easy. And I just want to relate to everyone who might be struggling with those things that if you have a friend in someone, just use your friend connection to navigate those other weird waters, because otherwise it's just too weird, it's too bumpy. I don't want to just suddenly make out with my friend without her knowing. I wanted to have that talk of like, are you okay if I do this? Like, are you sure? Like, do you like soft or hard? Like, like, can I take your order? So I really like I wanted to hook up with them Friday. Didn't happen. I wanted to hook up with them Saturday afternoon at my house. She was naked on my bed. We were giggling. Couldn't happen. I finally made it happen, Saturday night. So it took me multiple tries to get myself to a place where I could be like, hey, can I go down on you? So I think it was a pretty special night, especially because they got to listen to their podcast go live on their drive home to their home state. So yeah, it was pretty cool. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it, but I'm going to go straight to my fan page now, and I'm going to give them the extra inch, if you will, that sometimes can make a world of difference.